Blog Talk Radio.
And in those days there were giants in the land, and the sons of the angels of God looked upon the daughters of men and found them fair, and took of them wives, and their sons became of old great men of renown. So they have been mixing with us on a genetic level since the time of Enoch and Ezekiel's will.
Here on Earth we're intrigued by the sun, moon, and stars, and imagine there's got to be planets like ours. So conceive of a face on the surface of Mars, so in need of a meaning and purpose we lost. That indeed they believe that these might be our gods, or that maybe with time we'll do right and evolve and eventually reach what they seek and then solve all the problems of man. But they really don't know that they fall in the works of our hands are but just filthy rags. So we travel the lands to dig up our past time elapses, and with it are much of the facts. Some imagine that God came in alien craft. They react in this way, they're so desperate for meaning and purpose, but satanic service, they know that they have evil motives. Am I making you nervous? I'm just scratching the surface. The signs from Ezekiel's wheel, when the skies unfold like scrolls and the breaking of seals. Heed the warning, the message is clear. Heed the warning, the time draws near. See the signs from Ezekiel's wheel, when the skies unfold like scrolls and the breaking of seals. Heed the warning, the message is clear. Heed the warning, the time draws near. In the blink of an eye, all believers will be raptured. Anyone left receives a mark or the capture. This leader will arise, claim his origins are alien, possessed by Satan on the side of the Nephilim. Profess those who left held us back from evolving, and now that they're gone, we'll solve all of Earth's problems. The worship of any one God will be halted. Evolve into gods and ourselves be exalted. They'll play on these lines, and in time they'll devise and arrive at a plan that will help hypnotize all the ones left behind, the spiritually blind. He's stolen their souls, now he's stealing their minds. It's already started, we're seeing the signs. Just study the word, prophecies all aligned. Now chop off the heads of all those who fight at one earth, one world. Aren't you excited? The signs from Ezekiel's wheel, when the skies unfold like scrolls and the breaking of seals. Heed the warning, the message is clear. Heed the warning, the time draws near. See the signs from Ezekiel's wheel, when the skies unfold like scrolls and the breaking of seals. Heed the warning, the message is clear. Heed the warning, the time draws near. Where will you be in the year 2012? Are they casting a spell they're not ready to tell? It's time to reveal what they tried to keep veiled. Pure evil they hail and they sell it so well. He fell from the heavenly realms where he dwelled, a once beautiful angel that tried to rebel. Expelled from the light into darkness and hell, now a serpent and snake with reptilian scale. He wears a disguise with angelic wings and mimics the truth with a lie so obscene. He always repeats the same thing he told Eve, that you'll be supreme, a king or a queen, that you can evolve to an enlightened being, a god of your own that can do anything. He feeds on our souls with this fraudulent scheme in so many ways, but it's all just the same. See the signs from Ezekiel's wheel, when the skies unfold like scrolls and the breaking of seals. Heed the warning, the message is clear. Heed the warning, the time draws near. See the signs from Ezekiel's wheel, when the skies unfold like scrolls and the breaking of seals. Heed the warning, the message is clear. Heed the warning, the time draws near.
Why hide yourself with, creating UFO crafts and things like that? Why that deception if that's indeed what's going on?
The creatures figured out that there was one way that they could frighten mankind, and that is to present themselves as technologically superior beings, some physical UFOs.
Why would they want to abduct human beings?
UFO abduction might not be caused by physical occupants, but from creatures living in perhaps what we would call another dimension.
Posing as occupants.
Yes, the same type of interfering, harassing, paraphysical creature in every culture worldwide.
Welcome, friends. Shabbat Shalom. I thank you for joining me for another episode where we're going to be talking about and covering more information about the Nachash and how it was that we ended up being here on this planet, and going to be speaking about the prior times and talking about a little bit of the prehistory of what occurred before the modern creation of Adam and Eve, and the beginning of what was the Second World Age and all of our then later incarnations into the flesh. But I think it's important for those that are not well versed or not have not studied really detailed into what had occurred as far as, you know, the prior times, the prehistory of what, you know, what had happened on this planet and other things that were going on within this solar system, and how all that led to the Father deciding to create Adam and Eve, and also in judging the fallen angels that were here before we were. This information will also to help explain why it is that so many underwater archaeologists and scientists, geologists, why there are so many anomalies within the Earth's history. Different artifacts that have been found within coal beds that cannot be explained. There's many cities that have come to light that are thousands of feet below the surface of our oceans, on the, you know, the structures that are still remaining on the floor of the oceans, and how it is that these incredible structures came to be when science claims that this was all at a time prior to humanity being able to even, you know, hunt and gather, and where we broke up into tribes and then later became farmers and started to harvest crops and be able to gather in larger groups of people and to settle in different places around the planet. Because those that haven't looked into the strangeness that is the reality of the prior times and what had occurred, the fallen ones were already present, not only on this planet, but had access and were creating structures and inhabiting different planets within this particular solar system. And that's also why it was that at a point later, the Father judged the planet known to us as Rahab, Tiamat, Maldek, and why that planet was destroyed, and how the remnants of that planet still can be seen and are basically known in the Sumerian text as the hammered bracelet, or what has come to be known as the emerald, the asteroid belt. And so I'm going to be reading some text from the Emerald Tablets, and also I'm going to read a little bit from the eyewitness account of Credo Mutwa, who talks about the previous history and cites what had occurred according to what he has been shown and has been taught. And this knowledge, this information, we are not at all privileged to. And he is being a shaman and part of the traditions in Africa where this kind of mythology and this kind of information is passed down from generation to generation. We then now have his testimony, which I believe Credo is 90-some plus years old now, and you know these lines of wisdom and the wisdom keepers that have been keeping all of the traditional mythology, they have they are quickly disappearing, and a lot of that incredible information that people have had access to are also dying off with the elders of the various tribes and peoples and groups from all over the world. And we're lucky to have had his testimony, which also verifies the esoteric nature, the incredible supernatural nature of what is revealed within the gospel. And for those that don't understand the implications of this story and how it affects us, and because it does affect us, we are still dealing with this particular present, and they are ruling over humanity as cited in many of the different ancient texts. And so it will be interesting, to say the least, for a lot of you that have not heard about or read about any of these particular texts. And when I cite some of this information, I'm going to be reading from various different tablets, and I'm not going to be reading them all in fullness, but I'm going to be selecting certain passages that are connected to what I'm going to be talking about. But I do want to, and I'll be looking into the chat room to kind of answer any questions, and if anybody has any commentary, that in between reading the dialogue, I'll try to look into and try to answer your questions as we go along with the flow of the show. But just to set the premise for all of what I'm going to be touching upon today. Oh, and also I have to make an announcement too, just to the listening audience, and I appreciate all of you so very much, but I am going to try to take Wednesday evenings off for a short period of time. I don't know exactly how long that will be, but I have to finish this new manuscript so that I can get the information out to you. And for those that don't know, this book is focused on pre-existence, predestination, and election, and how it is, why it is that we find ourselves in the flesh now. Sort of some of the things I will be talking about today, but it will be in a lot more detail as far as scriptures that you can go and look up for yourself, and how all of them are tied together and connected together to bring out the premise of what will be the foundation of my next book. And so I'm trying to get it out to you as soon as possible, but I'm running out of time as far as deadline, and so I'm going to have to take some time off, especially with me doing all of the shows that I'm doing with the hijacker as a guest on his show. And for those that have not listened to any of those, I'm a guest on freedomslips.com every Wednesday night with the hijacker, midnight till usually 1:30 to 2 o'clock in the morning, which really wears me out for the next day. But he's got a huge and interesting audience, and so I take the time to do it. But I do need to take, some of these Wednesday nights off so that I can finish up with this information and get this book out to you as soon as possible. And I will let you know when that changes. But as of right now, I will only be doing shows on Saturday, and I'll be doing, the guest appearances with him on Wednesday night. But anyway, those shows that I do with the hijacker, he asks some really good questions, and we cover a lot of the information that I've been writing about and that I've been talking about, and so it's nice to have somebody that has some information, some understanding of those things, and it's nice to be asked different questions which I may not have, thought about. And, with him having a huge audience, it's interesting what kind of questions they ask. So, anyways, I'm going to read quickly from this particular testimony of Krita Mutwa, and then we'll go into some of the other texts. It says this: but when the Chitauri, and the Chitauri are the feathered serpent, the Nachash, just like Genesis chapter 3, before Eve becomes beguiled by what is the serpent, which most people think is just a snake in the garden. But as revealed in my last book, Sons of God, Who We Are and Why We're Here, this Nachash was a feathered serpent. He was an enchanter. He was not a regular serpent as we have come to know, but he was upright and walking, and he's associated to the Dracos or the seraphim angels that we have come to know as the reptilian shapeshifters. And I know that for those that are not familiar with this information or never have been introduced to it, that this will, sound totally crazy and out of this world, but this is the reality of what we're dealing with on this planet. If you do your research, you will come to the same conclusions as I. And so from Krita Mutwa's account, the Chitauri are this presence that we're talking about. But when the Chitauri arrived in Africa, they told our people that they were gods and that they were going to give the human beings great gifts on one condition. We had to worship them and accept them as our creators. Some told our people that they were our elder brothers and that they had come back to the green womb of the mother and that they were going to make us into gods. Doesn't that sound exactly like Genesis chapter 3 and the promises of Satan to Eve before she ate of the fruit? Jabalon, sir, is a very strange god. He is supposed to be the leader of the Chitauri. Hold on one second. He is supposed to be the leader of the Chitauri. He is a god, to my great surprise, which I find certain groups of white people especially worshiping. We have known about Jabalon for many, many centuries, we black people, but I am surprised that there are white people who worship this god. And these people, amongst them, are people whom many have blamed for all the things that have happened on this earth, namely the Freemason people. We believe that Jabalon is the leader of the Chitauri. And one of his names in the African language, sir, is Umbaba Samhongo, the Lord King, the great father of the terrible eyes, because we believe that Jabalon has got one eye which, if he opens it, you die if he looks at you. Before human beings were created on this planet, there had existed a very wise race of people, known as the Immanucala. These people had come from the constellation known to the white people as Orion, and they had inhabited our earth for thousands and thousands of years, and that before they had left our earth to return once more to the sacred spider constellation, they made a great evacuation under the earth, beneath the Ruwenzori Mountains, the mountains of the moon, and deep in the bowels of Mother Earth, the Immanucala built a city of copper buildings a city with a wall of silver all around it, a city built at the huge mountain of pure crystal, the mountain of knowledge, the mountain from which all knowledge on the earth comes, and a mountain to which all knowledge on earth ultimately returns. No matter where you go in Africa, no matter how deep into the interior of the dark continent you tread, you will find very ancient stories which are incredibly similar. You will find African tribes. Sorry, Marley, you gotta move. I apologize. My cat jumped on the keyboard. Marley, move. Alright. I apologize again. No matter where you go in Africa, no matter how deep into the interior of the dark continent you tread, you will find very ancient stories which are incredibly similar. You will find African tribes and races who will tell you that they are descendants from gods who came out of the skies thousands of years ago. Some, however, say that these gods came to them from the sea in magical boats made out of reeds or woods or copper or even gold. In some cases, these gods and goddesses are described as beautiful human beings whose skins were either bright blue or green or even silver. But most of the time you will find it being said these great gods, especially the ones that came out of the sky, were non-human, scaly creatures which lived most of the time in mud or in water. Creatures of an extremely frightening and hideous, ugly appearance. Some say that these creatures were like crocodiles, with crocodile-like teeth and jaws, but with very large brown heads. Some say that these creatures are very tall beings with snake-like heads. Set on long, thin necks with very long arms and very long legs. There are those that tell us that these gods who came from the skies traveled throughout the land in magical boats made of bright metal, silver, copper, and gold. Boats which had the ability to sail over water or even to fly through the sky like birds. Throughout Africa, we are told these mysterious beings taught humans many things. They taught human beings how to have laws, knowledge, or herbal medicine, knowledge of the arts and knowledge of the mysteries of creation and the cosmos as a whole. We are told that some of these gods had the ability to change their shapes at will. They had the ability to assume the shape and the appearance of any creature that there is on the earth whenever they had good reason to do so. A sky god could even turn itself into a rhinoceros, an elephant, or even a stork. A sky god could even turn itself into a rock or even a tree. In Africa, these mysterious gods are known by various names. In West Africa, in the land of the Bumbara people, these amphibians or reptilian sky gods are known as the Zishwizi. The word Zishwizi means either the swimmers or the divers. Oh, I'm sorry, I lost my place. Give me just a minute. Okay, I'm almost there. All right. Yes, you can blame that on my cat again. I apologize. All right. It says this. The word Zishwizi means either the swimmers or the divers of the gliders. It was said that these sky gods could dive from above the clouds down to the top of a mountain whenever they felt like it. They could also take deep dives into the bottom of the ocean and from there fetch magical objects and then bring them to the shore, placing them at the feet of the astonished black people. In the land of the Dogon people, we find the famous Nomo, a race of reptilian or amphibian beings who were said to have come from the Sirius star to give knowledge and religion to the black people of Dogon. One is told that when the Nomo arrived from the sky in their fantastic skyships, there were several of them, 13 or 14 of them, and they created a lake around their skyship. And every morning they used to swim from their skyship to the shores of the lake and there preach to the people who assembled in large numbers around the lake. It is said, and I'm almost done, it is said that before the Nomo departed, returning with a great noise back to their home star, they first chose one of their number, killed it, and cut its body up into little pieces, and then gave these pieces to the assembled people to eat in a sacrificial ritual of its first kind on earth. When the people had eaten the sacred flesh of the star creature and drunk its blood mixed with water, the Nomo took the lower jaw of the creature and by some incredible fact of magic brought it seemingly to life again. We are told that this is the way that the Nomo taught our people. Last paragraph. In the Americas, in South and Central America, mostly the feathered serpent is called Quetzalcoatl, and amongst my people, the Zulus, we find belief in a serpent called Yundalanda. The Yundalanda is said to be a huge mamba, or a huge python, whose neck is covered in grayish blue feathers, like the feathers of a blue crane. And at the top of the serpent's head grow 3 feathers, one green, one red, and one white one, which looks like huge ostrich tail feathers. The Yolandala, like the South American Quetzalcoatl, is associated with God, the sun god. All right, let me check the chat room because all right, can you hear me clearly? I just want to make sure that everything's good. And I apologize for my crazy cat. For those of you that have never met Marley, he's still a little baby. He's about 8 months. you're hearing a scraping. Huh. There's not a link for this particular passage. It's from the testimony of Preda. For those of you that have my book, you can find this testimony in chapter 14 of the on the flying fiery serpent. Now I'm going to touch upon a couple passages from what are called the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. And this book will also give confirmation to Credo Mutwa's testimony, and will speak about how it was that they had created some of the underground bases and structures that were here from thousands and thousands of years ago. And it's a very interesting story. And like I said, I'm going to skip over a lot of what is, unnecessary for this particular show. But it's interesting the information that is cited in this supposedly 35,000-year-old text, and that this particular text also will give a verification of what Credo just spoke about as these beings having been here long before the creation of modern humanity. And how it is that they're responsible for some of the megalithic structures that are found worldwide, and also the deep underground bases. Because for those of you that have studied into the deep underground bases, many people have cited, and Phil Schneider is one of those, that he was killed for his particular testimony on this information. But he talks about how when they built on top of some of these structures, they were digging into structures that had already pre-existed, and that there were fantastic tunnel systems worldwide which connected a lot of these deep underground bases, and that these bases and these tunnel systems were not built by the Black Op programs that have built many of these structures since. And so I'm going to read some quick passages from this, and then I'll come back and check the chat room, just in case you have any questions. All right, let me see. And if you want to, let me go ahead and I'll post a link, even though you won't be able to follow along. But those that are interested in reading this information for yourself at a later time, you will be able to do so. And I'm going to be going through all of them. I'm going to be picking various passages from all of the tablets which link to this particular information. All right, there's a link for the Emerald Tablets for those that have access to the chat room. And like I said, I'm going to be reading quickly from various passages that have to do with the information that I want to bring forth discussing this particular presence. And for those that don't know, these tablets are written from the perspective of Thoth, who cites himself as being a priest king of Atlantis prior to its destruction. And he's going to speak about how it was that as part of the fallen ones, that they were able to go in and out of form, that they weren't just flesh beings. But at a later point, after the time of Atlantis, they had gotten captured and gotten caught up into what is flesh form. So, and I'll comment as we go along. It says this. The first part will be about how it was that they were interdimensional beings and they were not connected to the physical form such as we are. And even us, we are sons of God as well that are caught up in the flesh form, but dreaming is one of those things that proves that we're not connected only to the physical, because when we go into dreaming and we leave our bodies at night, that's just verification that we are consciousness which inhabits our bodies. And so he's going to be speaking about initially about how it was that they were able to come in and out of flesh form and to possess, different bodies. Says this, and this is going to be interesting. In the great city of Kior, on the island of Undal, in a time far past, I began this incarnation, not as the little men of the present age did the mighty ones of Atlantis live and die, but rather from eon to eon did they renew their life in the halls of Amente, where their river of life flows eternally onward. One quick comment about this particular passage. He says that not as the little men of the present age. Now you have to remember that when these particular beings came here to the earth, they were of gigantic stature as well, and that they were, larger in proportion than the pre-Adamic creatures that were then on the earth. Continuing. Far in the past time, lost in the space-time, the children of light look down on the world. See the children of men in their bondage, bound by the force that came from beyond. Knew they that only by freedom from bondage could man ever rise from the earth to the sun. Down they descended and created bodies, taking the semblance of men as their own. The masters of everything said after their forming, we are they who were formed from the space dust, partaking a life from the infinite awe, living in the world as children of men, like and yet unlike the children of men. This next 3 passages are speaking about how they had created some of these deep underground structures and bases. And this again is prior to the modern creation of Adam and Eve. It says this, then for a dwelling place far beneath the earth's crust, blasted great spaces they by their power, spaces apart from the children of men, surrounded them by forces and power, shielded from harm, they, the halls of the dead. Side by side then placed they other spaces and filled them with life and light from above. Builded they then the halls of the Mente, that they might dwell eternally there, living with life to eternity's end? 32 were they of the children, sons of light, who had come among men, seeking to free from the bondage of darkness those who were bound by the force from beyond. So see, in this particular passage, in the very first verse, it says, then for a dwelling place far beneath the earth's crust, blasted, like they use, like the same technology, how we have to use certain types of explosive to blow out, depending on what kind of rock type they're dealing with. Phil Schneider speaks about this in his testimony on creating these deep underground bases, and that was, his expertise. That was one of the things that the government had, hired him to do, and that's also one of the things that he did when he came into encounter with these particular beings, and he got into a fight with them, and he had 3 of his fingers incinerated by some kind of photon blast. And that was also just further confirmation as to his having, really gone through that experience. For those that don't know, you can look up Phil Schneider, and he's since been murdered for his testimony on these things, but he is one of those that has brought this information to the public audience and speaks about these incredibly, what seems like just insane things, And so, blasted great spaces they by their power, spaces apart from the children of men, and surrounded them by forces and power, shielded from harm they, the halls of the dead. So they were, here Thoth is citing how a long time ago they built these deep underground structures. All right, now I'm going to speak about this next particular passage. Is going to talk about his seeing life in other parts of the universe, in other parts of space. And what he's giving reference to is having journeyed, like in a dream, in a vision. He was, having an outer body experience, basically, where he saw in the vision that he relates other planets and the types of life and the types of civilization that he was witness to. And so this is an interesting passage as well. It says this: far into space my soul traveled freely into infinity's circle of light. Strange beyond knowledge were some of the planets, great and gigantic, beyond dreams of men. Yet found I law in all of its beauty, working through and among them, as here among men. Flashed forth my soul through infinity's beauty, far through space I flew with my thoughts. Rested I there on a planet of beauty, strains of harmony filled all the air. Shapes there were moving in order, great and majestic, as stars in the night, mounting in harmony, ordered equilibrium, symbols of the cosmic, like unto law. Many the stars I passed in my journey, many the races of men on their worlds, some reaching high as stars of the morning, some falling low in the blackness of night, each and all of them struggling upward, gaining the heights and plumbing the depths, moving at times in realms of brightness, living through darkness, attempting to gain the light. Know, O man, that light is thine heritage. Know that darkness is only a veil. Sealed in thine heart is brightness eternal, waiting the moment of freedom to conquer, waiting to rend the veil of night. Some I found who had conquered the ether. Free of space were they, while yet they were men. Using the force that is foundation of all things, far in space constructed they a planet, drawn by the force that flows through the all, condensing, coalescing, the ether into forms that grew as they willed. Outstripping in science, they, all of the races, mighty in wisdom, sons of the stars. Long time I paused, watching their wisdom. I saw them create from out of the ether cities gigantic, of rose and gold, formed forth from the primal element, base of all matter, the ether far flung. Far in the past, they had conquered the ether, freed themselves from the bondage of toil, formed in their mind only a picture, and swiftly created, it grew. Forth then my soul sped throughout the cosmos, seeing ever new things and old, learning that man is truly space-born, a son of the sun, a child of the stars. One comment about this particular passage, which I thought was really interesting, especially the last part when he's describing these particular beings that are able to create from the intent of their will, and how, as Christ did when he fed the masses with just a couple of fish and a couple of loaves of bread, how he was able to manifest, enough food and enough bread, enough fish and enough bread to feed 5,000. And it seems like, almost like Thoth had a vision of heaven. And another reason I say that is because I remember a testimony of a certain, I believe he was Nigerian, a Nigerian pastor, and in his testimony he spoke about how it was that he had died, and during his death he was taken into the ether and given a vision of both heaven and hell. But in his vision of heaven, he spoke about these structures, and the city that was also built of crystal, rose and gold in color, just like that is being described here. And he spoke about how even the mansion that when Christ says that I go now to prepare a place for you, that in his vision of heaven he saw these mansions that were built of this rose-type crystal. And that, we all have heard about the streets of gold. So it just seemed interesting to me whether Thoth, was having a vision or seeing what was the place that is being prepared for all of us as far as a return to our first estate. Could this possibly be the streets of gold that are described in Revelation in chapter 19 and 20? When Christ comes to judge everything again, and the wheat and the tares are separated, and the righteous go on to inherit the ordinances that were abandoned by the watchers and the rebel angels so long ago. Who knows? But it is an interesting passage. All right, I'm going to check the chat room again, and then we're going to go into some passages about Atlantis. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming. I appreciate all of you. All right. I did post a link for those that have just now joined us in chat room. I did post a link for going through different passages from the different tablets on the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. And at the very beginning of the show, I read a testimony from Credo Mutwa as to his experience and the information that he was given on the presence of the Nachash. And for those that don't know, the Nachash is the serpent that is described in Genesis chapter 3, the one that seduced and beguiled Eve, and that tempted her with basically the same promises that Credo says that the Chitauri had promised to his people when they came to them, so long ago. Also, for those that don't know, in the last show that I did last Wednesday evening, I read from some mythology, some Native American mythology that also spoke about the piasa. And the piasa is this particular feathered serpent type of creature as well. And then I ended the show, which those that did hear it, I got a lot of commentary about the clip that I played from Rush Limbaugh, where he was talking about those people that had previously existed and lived upon Mars. And that was an interesting clip. So for those of you that missed it, you might want to definitely catch up on that particular show. But so I don't run out of time, we're going to continue pressing forward and bring forth to light some other things which have to do with, the prior times, our hidden prehistory, the history before the modern creation of Adam and Eve. This is about Atlantis. Light there was in ancient Atlantis. Yes, darkness too was hidden in all. Fell from the light into the darkness some who had risen to heights among men. Proud they became because of their knowledge. Proud were they of their place among men. Deep delved they into the forbidden, opened the gateway that led to below. Sought they to gain ever more knowledge, but seeking to bring it up from below. He who descends below must have balance, else he is bound by lack of our light. Open they, then, by their knowledge, pathways forbidden to man. But in his temple, all-seeing, the dweller lay in his Agwanti, which through Atlantis his soul roamed free. Saw he the Atlanteans by their magic opening the gateway that would bring to earth a great woe. Fast fled his soul then, back to his body. Up he arose from his Agwanti. Called he the three mighty messengers, gave the command that shattered the world. Deep beneath the earth's crust, to the halls of Amente, swiftly descended the dweller. Called he then on powers of the seven lords, wielded and changing the earth's balance. Down sank Atlantis beneath the dark waves, shattered the gateway that had been opened, shattered the doorway that led down below. All of the islands were shattered except Unal, and part of the island of the sons of the dweller. Preserved he them to be the teachers, lights on the path for those to come after, lights for the lesser children of men. Now the next passage is going to speak about the dispersion. In the dialogues of Plato, in Critias and Timaeus, and in a lot of the work of a guy named James Churchward, who wrote about Mu and Mu as being the mother culture. And basically he's citing, in his work, he's written a book about, the land of Mu, the children of Mu, the symbols of Mu, and all of these are connected to Atlantis, which was, for the fallen ones, it was their first attempt at unifying the world in what we know as a New World Order, or global domination by the elites, by the Nachash, over the councils of humanity. So I'm going to read this. It says, over all earth give we ye power, free thou to give or take it away. Gather thou now the sons of Atlantis, take them and flee to the people of the rock caves. Fly to the land of the children of Chem. For those of you that don't know, Chem is an ancient reference to Egypt. The land of Chem is the land of Egypt. Then gathered I, the sons of Atlantis. Into the spaceship I brought all my records. Brought the records of sunken Atlantis. Gathered I all of my powers, instruments, many of mighty magic. And yes, I did say spaceship. According to this text, they had the capacity and the technology to fly, across the earth and even into and back from space, according to the text. Up then we rose on wings of the morning. High we rose above the temple, leaving behind the three and dweller. Deep in the halls beneath the temple, down beneath the waves sank the great temple, closing the pathways to the lords of the cycles. Yet ever to him who has knowing, open shall be the pathway to Amente. Fast fled we, then on the wings of the morning, we fled to the land of the children of Chem. There by my power I conquered and ruled them. Raised I to light the children of Chem. Deep beneath the rocks I buried my spaceship, waiting the time when man might be free. Over the spaceship erected a marker in the form of a lion, yet like unto man. There beneath the image rests yet my spaceship, forth to be brought when need shall arise. Okay, I want to make a comment here. For those of you that are aware of the prophecies of Edgar Cayce and how his foundation, they have been funding for a long period of time exploration and archaeology around what we know as the Sphinx, or what is cited here in this particular text as being, the form of a lion, yet like unto a man, meaning that it had a lion's body and a man's face, or a head of a man, and that this Sphinx, according to the text, is where Thoth, this supposed Atlantean, had buried his spaceship, and that within this spaceship were the records that he had collected and written since, long before even the destruction of Atlantis. Because Cayce spoke about a hall of records as being somewhere underneath the left paw of the Sphinx. And I believe it's Andrew Collins, if I'm correct. He speaks about how they indeed found certain passages and even an entire underground city complex under the left paw of the Sphinx. Now, we're not privy to, the information as to what exactly was found there, but supposedly there was some kind of a weird magic or technology that served as a barrier to prevent further exploration of this, supposed underground city, and what may have been passageways that could lead to the Hall of Records, or to, who knows, maybe even this spaceship as cited in this ancient text. Now, whether any of that is true, or whether any, of the Emerald Tablets are true or not, who knows? But it seems interesting to me that these supposed, thousands of year old texts have cited within them incredible technology, and also how it was that these fallen ones had created a lot of the structures and a lot of the things that are so unexplainable as far as science goes, because they deny the fallen angels, they deny the giants, they claim that people, the pre-Adamic peoples, were the ones that built all these megalithic structures, when we can't even, with our modern technology, lift some of the megalithic stones that were utilized in creating some of these megalithic structures found worldwide. And if we can't replicate those kind of feats and tasks today, are we really supposed to believe that our ancestors or ancient, that the pre-Adamic peoples, that they were the ones that built these structures? It's my opinion that only with understanding the truth that is veiled within the gospel, namely that there were, that the fallen angels had left their place of habitation and had, leaving their first estate, come to this particular planet and others, because they built on other planets of this solar system, and that, they were the ones that also birthed into being the giants, and that some of these giants are cited as being well over 30 feet tall, and that if you have a number of like a huge force of these 30 plus tall people, creatures, it would seem like they would be able to do a lot of the things that we find that are mysterious worldwide. So it makes sense to me that that the Word has indeed presented to us the truth of how these things came to be, and why it is that we see all of these unexplainable things found worldwide that were done previous to the 7,000 years of history that is of modern day humanity. And so in my mind, the existence of these structures is just further confirmation that the Word holds all answers, and that for those that are trying to understand the gospel, that when you are brought to discernment on it, you will indeed see that, yes, the things that are spoken about in the Bible, the wars of gods and men, the wars of either the seed line of the giants, the enmity between the seed of the serpent and the seed of the woman, that these are the things that indeed truly did happen. That there were giants on the earth before the flood of Noah and even after. And many, that have not studied this information, they know about the story of David and Goliath. Everybody knows about the story of David and Goliath, but they don't know about the prehistory of the wars between the Nachash and their giant children and the seed of Adam, the line of Seth, and the seed of the woman, or humanity. And if you don't have this discernment, really so much that is written in the Word will just fly right over your head. You will not even gloss it in understanding, because you don't know what it's speaking about. So let's continue, because we're going to run out of time. All right. Far in the past, when first I came to thee, found I thee in caves of rocks. Lifted I thee by my power and my wisdom, until thou didst shine as men among men. Found I thee without any knowing. Only a little were ye raised beyond beasts. Fanned I ever the spark of thy consciousness, until at last ye flamed as men. Now shall I speak to thee knowledge ancient beyond the thought of thy race. Know ye that we of the great race had and have knowledge that is more than man's. Wisdom we gain from the star-born races, wisdom and knowledge far beyond man. Down to us had descended the masters of wisdom, as far beyond us as I am from thee. All right, so let's take a look at this passage and let's decipher it with the parallel of the book of Enoch, the first and second book of Enoch. Because in the book of Enoch, Enoch shares with us testimony as to the fall of the rebel angels and the fall of the watchers, the holy angels that left their place of habitation and that brought the secrets of the heavens to the pre-Adamic creatures that they found upon the earth, and that utilizing genetic experimentation and also engaging in direct bestiality, that they were able to bring up what I cite in my book, Sons of God, and I speak about this in detail, the Bigfoot type creature, or what they call, what was pre-Adamic man. And that the pre-Adamic man that they first found when they came here to this planet was a Bigfoot type creature that was fully covered in red hair, had arms that hung down to his knees, basically like the Sasquatch that, so many speak about, the Bigfoot that are found worldwide in mythology. It was this particular creature that was upon the face of the planet, and it was this particular creature that they began to do their experimentations with. Modern humanity was not yet on the scene, and modern humanity was not created by them. It was the Father and the Son who, as the Word, they created us in their image and breathed into us the breath of life. And that is what makes us different. That's what makes us special among the creatures of the earth. And that's also what, caused the fallen angels to become jealous. And the Sumerian texts speak about this as well. The sudden appearance of what they call civilized man. And in the Sumerian text, they talk about how it was that they attempted to create a slave race from this Lulu or primitive worker, and how over time and space and through many different genetic experimentations and over a long period of time, they were able to bring it up to certain degrees so that it could understand certain things and be taught menial tasks. But it still had no language. It still wasn't capable of domesticating creatures and of farming the land. It could only perform menial tasks. And even in Genesis speaks about the two different creations as well, citing one, the primitive worker, to the Elohim, and then the next creature, which the Father had created to work the land. This was the Adam that was given the breath of life, that was brought forth by Yahweh Elohim, the Most High God, the creator of all things. And so that's the difference. And this is, for those that, haven't studied in detail into this, I know this is a lot in a short period of time, and you'll really have to do your homework to get the full understanding of what I'm speaking about. But it also is contained and veiled within the Word. And the differences between what the Elohim had created, or the fallen ones, and what the Father had created. It's all there. You can look it up for yourself. And, as I said earlier, and I'm not trying to get you to buy my books, that, money and all that has no bearing upon what I'm doing. I'm just trying to share with you the knowledge. That's why I've been doing, these radio shows and sharing them freely on all my video work. I share it freely with all of you. I just want you to have the knowledge, to have the discernment, to understand the Word, so that you will be interested in unlocking all these secrets for yourself. And in reading over the gospel with this understanding, you will then be able to understand what it is trying to reveal to you, what it is trying to bring forth as the secrets. Christ, even in Matthew chapter 13, when Christ is speaking about the children of the wicked one, the tares, he says that he's going to bring to light secrets that have been veiled since the foundations of the world. And these are also some of those secrets. Because Christ speaks about the differences between the wheat and the tares, the goat and the sheep, the left and the right. And it's the same thing as I'm speaking about here, with the enmity between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent, and how Cain was the firstborn of the devil, the enmity that, the enemy that sowed the tares, also as cited in the parable of the garden in Matthew chapter 13, spoken to the apostles by our Lord and our King. Unless you have this discernment, all those things just will not make sense. I'm going to check the chat room, and then we're going to continue on. All right. Let's continue. All right. We're going to speak again about the prior times. This is further testimony of Thoth, and he's going to speak about the divisions between what became the sons of light and the sons of darkness. And for those that have studied the Dead Sea Scrolls, there's what's called the War Scroll that speaks about a 7-stage war between the sons of light and the sons of darkness, and how at the end of all this, these different battles, that the sons of light will overcome. And we know that this will be the battle of Armageddon, and that Lucifer, or Satan, the adversary, that he is busy now preparing his new world order and unifying the world so that he can fight against the return, the second coming of Christ, of Yahushua, Savior, Messiah. But that the Son only has to speak a word to destroy all the armies that are gathered against him. But all of this lines up. The ancient texts, the testimony from the native tribes, the peoples, the hidden secrets of ancient mythology and the oral traditions that have been passed down to only a select few. You can read even the Blue Star, Red Star, Kachina prophecies put forth by the Hopi. It all fits together. As a matter of fact, next Saturday I'll do a show on that. I'll do a show on the Hopi prophecies and how they connect into all of this information. And then we'll take a look at the Blue Star, the Red Star prophecies, and then I'll tie together some information with the Colburn Bible, which is another very ancient text that goes back, to these ancient times, and I'll tie it together with what we're speaking on here. So it'll be a follow-up on this information. All right, it says this. Long ages ago, the sons of the morning, descending, found the world filled with night. There, in that pastime, began the struggle, the age-old battle of darkness and light. Many in that time were so filled with darkness that only feebly flamed the light from the night. Some there were, masters of darkness, who sought to fill all with their darkness, sought to draw others into their night. Fiercely withstood they the masters of brightness, fiercely fought they from the darkness of night. Sought they ever to tighten the fetters, the chains that bind man to the darkness of night? Used they always the dark magic brought into man by the power of darkness, magic that enshrouded man's soul with darkness? Banded together in as order, brothers of darkness, they through the ages, antagonists, they to the children of men, walked they always secret and hidden, found yet not found by the children of men. Forever they walked and worked in darkness, hiding from the light in the darkness of night. Silently, secretly, used they their power, enslaving and binding the souls of men. Unseen they come, and unseen they go. Man in his ignorance calls them from below. Dark is the way of the dark brothers. travel, dark with darkness, not of the night. Traveling over earth, they walk through man's dreams. Power they have, they gain from the darkness around them to call others, dwellers, from out of their plane in ways that are dark and unseen by man. Into man's mind space reach the dark brothers. Around it they close the veil of their night. There, through its lifetime, that soul dwells in bondage, knowledge, forbidden, because it is one with the night. Even at let me comment here real quick before I continue on, because we need to comment here real quick. Now, is this not a perfect reference to how they possess people? How the fallen angels can take over and possess, even like when Christ sent them into the swine, how they can take over flesh. And these two particular men that came out, they were possessed by legion. They were possessed by the fallen angels. And Christ cast them out into the swine. And remember, in that particular paragraph, in that passage, they say, first they recognize him. They recognize him as the Son of God. And then they say, have you come to torment us before the time? So the fallen ones, they know that they have only a certain amount of time in order for them to rule over humanity. And that once that time is up, which that will be when Christ comes again to judge, as it says in Matthew chapter 13, when he will send his angels as the reapers to gather up the wheat and to gather up the tares for burning, that is when he will separate the goats from the sheep, from those of the broad path of destruction, those that follow the left-hand path, from those that follow the narrow way, that are of the righteous, that are of the elect. And we're that generation. We're those that will see the harvest come to pass. All right. I'll be able to read one more passage, I think. I think this is a relevant way to end it as well. It says this: even as exists among the dark brothers, even as exists among men the dark brothers, so there exist the brothers of light. Antagonists, they of the brothers of darkness, seeking to free men from the night. Powers have they, mighty and potent, knowing the law, the planets obey. Work they ever in harmony and order, freeing the man's soul from its bondage of night. Secret and hidden walk they also. Know not are they to the children of men, yet know that ever they walk with thee, showing the way to the children of men. Ever have they fought the dark brothers, conquered and conquering time without end, yet always light shall in the end be master, driving away the darkness of night. Amen. Know ye this knowing. Always beside thee walk the children of light. Masters they of the sun power, ever unseen, yet the guardians of men. Open to all is their pathway, open to he who will walk in the light. Free are they of dark amente, free of the halls where life reigns supreme. Sons are they and lords of the morning, children of light to shine among men. Like man are they, and yet are unlike. Never divided were they in the past. One have they been in oneness eternal, throughout all space and since the beginning of time. Up did they come in oneness with the All One, up from the first space, formed and unformed. So here you see in this particular passage, it speaks about how just as there are an organized force, like the Freemasons, the Brotherhood, the Belial, the Sons of the Serpent, the Sons of the Dragon, all these different secret societies that have banded together and that perform their deeds in secrecy, hidden away from the knowledge of humanity, that there are also the children of light, the angels of light, the sons of light, the sons of the law and order that are working to assist humanity in bringing forth, knowledge of the Father and the Son and the judgment that is coming. Because they are the ones that are still in service to the Morning Star administration. They're the ones that are helping to protect humanity and helping to keep people safe when so many of the forces of darkness are aligned against them. Those of you that have chose to seek the kingdom first, these are the protectors, the guardian angels like Michael and the cherubim forces, Gabriel. We've had many references from the Word in the Gospel that speak about the angels that have come to help humanity, that have even heralded the birth of Christ when Gabriel was sent to Mary to inform her that she was going to be the mother to our Savior. When Abraham was told that Sarah would give birth to Isaac, all the different times when Peter was led out of the out of embodiment and being caught up in prison, all the different times, the angels that went to protect Daniel, and the three that were thrown into the furnace of fire. The angels of light are all around us as well, and they are guarding and protecting. And as long as you are serving the Father and seeking to align yourself with His divine and high purpose for all of our being here, because all of us are special, and all of us have role and mission to serve in bringing forth His eternal kingdom. And all of us are tasked with first coming to remembrance ourselves. As Christ said, know thyself. That we are responsible for seeking to know the deep our reason for being here on this planet and at this time. We've got 90 seconds. I would just like to ask the Father and the Son to watch over and to protect all of you. I thank you for your fellowship and for your kindness, for sharing with me your testimony. And I pray that the Father and the Son, that not only do they protect you, but protect your family and help you to bring yourself remembrance on all of these things so that you can realize that we are sons of God, that we're caught up in flesh, that we're lost on a fallen planet in a fallen state of being, but that we have redemption and a chance to be part of the salvation that has been extended to us by the sacrifice of our Lord and King who came into the flesh and allowed Himself to be murdered so that He could present to us the way and the truth and the light that He is, because He and the Father are one. And all the things that sound like they're totally unconnected and all the things that sound like mere mythology and fantasy, unveiled in the Word, those are the secrets that He wants you to have so that you can remember who you are, why you're here, and what all of this is about. God bless you all. Good night.